Today, we are diving into something that most people usually tiptoe around. And not because I want to be that guy, but because it's, for some people, not just convenient to talk about the things I'm going to talk today. And what I'm going to talk today is the wild and the baffling world of VCs or venture capitalists and investors. These are, kind of a special breed, to say the least. So I think that it's time that we unpack some of the lessons and contradictions that as a founder you might find yourself, and I definitely found myself into a number of times in the last 15 years now. And so it's always good to share with you some of my experiences and what I can conclude, or what I could conclude a few years ago about the world of VC. Now, it should be that, the economy goes where the technology allows. While it is more obvious that technology follows the economy, or well, it follows the money. And money sometimes is driven by feelings and or trends. And of course, trends sometimes follow hype, which is exactly what the problem is. And we are seeing this a number of times since a few years now, especially when it comes to the AI and AI technology. Trend is really hype, in fact. And this is happening because there are very few but very effective people who are doing an amazing job at pumping the hype. And of course, when you do that, you also, attract a certain type of investors or type of VCs who actually are, born to follow the hype and to put their money where the hype is. Now, if you think that all VCs have all the answers, you should think again, because in this episode, I would like to expose exactly that, this hilarious and sometimes maddening world of venture capital advice, where the things like grow fast and grow slow are usually said in the same room, rarely by the same guy, or where, for example, you have exactly 2 minutes to make millions or not. And if you spend like 2 minutes and a bit on pitching your vision, that's too long. This type of bullshit. So if you want to have the too long didn't read version of this episode, it's just that VCs don't always know what they're talking about. But of course, their money talks very loud, and probably that's the thing that is the most confusing of all. Welcome back to Data Science at Home podcast, your go-to podcast for all things AI, machine learning, and tech entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Francesco, and today we are taking a break from algorithms and code to talk about something that is indeed just as crucial for especially tech startups and tech founders, which is, as I mentioned, the wild world of venture capital and the contradictory advice that often comes with it. Now, you have probably heard all of this before, especially if you are a founder or if you have been into a startup relatively recently. Things like grow fast or no, wait, grow slow and steady, or raise big or no, wait, raise small, so you stay scrappy. There are all these contradictions and counterintuitive advices as well. And today, I would like to dive into this, really conflicting world of VC advice, exploring why some of these contradictions do exist and how you can make sense of it all when you're building a startup. Now, the preamble on this is that I'm not generalizing over the category of venture capitalists, but I'm thinking of venture capitalists for the tech world, okay? Because that's where I've seen things, that's where I'm most experienced with. And, probably this is happening also across sectors, but I don't know, all right? So I cannot speak that, for or against the VCs in other sectors and sectors in which I'm definitely not familiar. Now, with this said, let's dive into the first contradiction of the day. Grow fast, yes. Grow fast, no. I mean, how many times have you heard this? Like, one of the first things that you will hear when you meet with VCs is the classic grow fast, right? There is kind of a push to scale quickly, to capture as much of the market as possible before someone else does it in your place. And, the argument is that speed matters. And if you're not moving fast, your competitors will overtake you and will put you out of business. That's usually the rationale behind an advice like grow fast, do it now, do it big. Of course, not all VCs agree. On the flip side, there are those who tell you to grow more deliberately. And why is that? Is because fast growth can lead to inefficiencies. Now, if you are a tech founder, you know that this indeed is a very big risk that you are running and you are taking. If you you might have inefficiencies, you might have scaling problems, you might have burnout, either from your team or yourself as a founder when you grow fast, because there are dynamics that at some point and sooner than you think, you will not know how to control. So when you move too fast, you can also make the wrong hires or target the wrong market, and these two things are a killer for your startup, because hiring the wrong people, of course, you are burning cash, and targeting the wrong market, you are burning yourself because you are building something that nobody will buy, at least not the potential customers that you are targeting. So how do you reconcile this? How do you let grow fast yes, grow fast no coexist in your head? Well, it really depends on your business. If your market is a winner-take-all game, then growing fast might be your only option. And there are a few examples that we are seeing, especially in AI these days. But if your business has a more niche market, or, for example, relies on customer relationships, deep customer relationships that take time to consolidate, think about fintech some years ago, well, a more deliberate growth plan might be definitely better than growing fast. So analyze your market, analyze your business, and see which decision fits you the best or the most. The second contradiction of the day is about product market fit versus your customers don't know what they want. we have seen this many times. I heard of this many times. And this is the one that cracks me up, to be honest, because it's a complete paradox. Like, really, on one side, you are told to obsess over product market fit, which means, do your customers actually need this product? Have you tested the waters, before implementing, before going to the whiteboard or the keyboard, even worse? Have you validated your market? These are the questions of those obsessed with product market fit. Very legit questions, of course. But then when you think you've nailed down exactly what your customers want, you'll hear someone say, customers don't really know what they want. You need to show them what they need. We all remember the Apple approach. Those who are 40-year-old this year know about the Apple approach, right? Build something that they didn't even know they wanted until they saw it. That was Steve Jobs a few years ago. Rest in peace. But that's exactly it. So which is it? Do we listen to customers or we don't? And again, the truth lies somewhere in between. This is an amazing advice that I take from an old professor of mine during my academic years, long time ago, more than 20 years ago. And, it's essential to get the initial validation from customers, because you need to make sure that you're solving a real problem. But then at some point, you also need to innovate beyond what customers are explicitly asking for. And that's where the true market disruption happens. Now, what customers are explicitly asking for is usually what they needed yesterday, right? What you also want to know is what they will need in 5 years from now. Because unless you are building a startup that you're going to sell next year on the hype, as many startups go or fail, then you're good with the first option, right? Which is product market fit, go for it, goodbye. But if you're building something that is, meant to stay in the years or in the decade, of course you have to ask yourself, okay, I'm selling this today because this is what my customers are explicitly asking for. But wait a minute, I should also be building or designing something that my customers might be asking or will ask me in 5 years from now, because that my business by then will still exist, and probably it will be orders of magnitude as bigger. Third contradiction of the day: raising. So raise big so you don't have to raise twice. versus raise small so you stay lean. And I keep smiling when I read this because it's another one that will sound familiar to pretty much all startup founders out there. Some VCs will tell you to raise as much as possible when you have momentum, so you don't have to come back to the table too soon, which makes sense, let's say. So they say get the usual capital influx, put it to work, and scale quickly. All right. But some other VCs will say exactly the opposite. And they will argue that you should raise as little as you can, just enough to meet your goal and prove your concept. So what's their logic? Well, the logic is the less money you raise, the less dilution you experience, or well, they experience because they gave you the cash, so they own your company. And the more you prove your ability to be scrappy and resourceful, which I frankly understand more. So I personally, and again, it depends on what business you're running, what type of product you are building, what vision do you have, but I have the tendency to prefer to be scrappy because it helps me, rationalizing on many things, especially at the beginning. Now, where's the reality? The reality is that both approaches can work, as a matter of fact. It depends, of course, on your expertise, on, of course, the market you are entering. If you're tackling a huge problem with significant competition, you may need to innovate in ways that other startups are not. But if you're focusing on a niche, then you can become the go-to solution and later consider expanding. Now I'm going to tell you something that would really make a lot of people mad, which is the following. You have 2 minutes to explain your startup because 3 minutes is too long. That's the famous elevator pitch, right? Some VCs will tell you that you have exactly 2 minutes to explain your startup, not a second more. You took 3 minutes? No, we have wasted precious time. The VC's attention span has vanished into thin air. So, really? Are we fucking talking about this? 2 minutes to summarize years of hard work, vision, blood, sweat, and tears. And so you can take 6 months to evaluate a fucking deal and give me the term sheets, but I got 2 minutes to convince you to invest. I mean, seriously, get out. Oh man, seriously. This happened to me all the time, and to many of my friends, it happened. Now, the reality of this is that if you find one of those guys who cannot spend more than 120 seconds and listen to what you have to say, because, 120 seconds, that's exactly what we're talking about. It's 2 damn minutes, not more. Well, probably they have a problem. It's not you. It's not you that you cannot summarize your vision in. You don't have to summarize your vision in 2 minutes. That's impossible, unless you're selling ice cream, probably. With all due respect to ice cream makers, but this is a product. Anyway, now what I want to tell you is that at the end of the day, the real advice they are giving you is, do what I say or don't. I'll still write the check if you seem cool enough. And that's how actually most of VCs think. And they usually say VCs don't put the money on the vision or the product. They definitely put the money on the theme, and the team is, of course, first of all, the founders. So the person who was actually having the first interactions with the VC. So the smart VC knows that 120 seconds is not sufficient, and they know how to treat founders. What I'm talking about, or who I'm talking about, is the majority of the other VCs who actually, abuse their position just because they have the cash, and because the loudest thing in the room is definitely not their wisdom, it's just their money. So one thing that I definitely want you to remind is that, VCs are here to make a bet, okay? And their bet is as big as yours as a founder, probably bigger in the sense that it's a lot riskier than yours. Not because of the cash, but because as a founder, unless you're an idiot, or you just didn't do your research and you're a very impulsive person, which it can happen, but I'm not talking about these people. you made your research, you know your product, you know your vision because you have it. And these people out there, these VCs, they have to embrace your vision and they have to make a bet on it by analyzing a few elements and really a few pixels of that big picture that you have in your head. And so, yeah, that's very hard. So now the problem is that they are making these bets, and VCs make bets all the time. And consider the fact that when they invest and they have these amazing portfolios, the portfolios are only the bets that they succeeded with, right? So the investments in companies that actually made it. They don't show the portfolio of the companies or the cash they burned in companies that didn't succeed. And all of that was because their bet was completely off, was completely wrong. So keep this in mind, that the portfolios that you see online on VC and agencies and websites, these are the success stories. And behind those stories, there are, there's an iceberg, the iceberg's tip. It's that, it's like that. So there are many stories that tell exactly the opposite, and the failures they never talk about. So if you ever find yourself caught between, conflicting VC advice, just remember, they are usually just as confused as you are, right? And the difference is that you are the one doing the real work because you're the founder, and very likely, especially in the tech world, you're a tech founder, and so you're probably the one who was also coding stuff and grasping the essential of the business and grasping the real challenges where time is really spent and why, and resources are spent and why. So when you're dealing with this conflicting VC advice, just smile, nod, and then, once the check clears, go and do whatever the hell you think is right. That's all I have to advise to you now. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Data Science at Home podcast. I'm your host, Francesco, reminding you to trust yourself and sometimes, actually very rarely, the guy in the suit with a confusing agenda. I'll see you next time. Take care.